All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to something a little bit different that we're actually going to be doing today. It's the first for FlaskUp.com, and I'm actually going to be interviewing one of the best paladins in the world. So today I am joined by Treckie from the guild Method. So how you doing today, Treckie?
I'm doing more than fine. Thank you very much.
Good, good. Glad to hear it. Is it lovely weather in Sweden as opposed to what we've got here in the UK, or?
It's actually raining very heavily right now here.
Yeah, we've had that. It's lovely. Brilliant weather. All right, so for those of you that don't know, Trekkie yesterday and Method in general took part in a massive charity event called the Siege, which is a collaboration event with loads of different World of Warcraft players and Twitch TV streamers kind of getting together in order to raise money for charity. And they took on Midwinter, and they won by a very close 2 minutes, I think
Yeah.
it was. It was a very, very close fight, and I think there were a few mistakes made, were there not? I think I remember hearing that someone might have accidentally pulled Dark Animus on your behalf, or...
It wasn't a miss pull or anything really. We did do a few mistakes on Dark Animus, that's for sure. I don't quite know exactly what happened. There was some aggro issues with the ads with the new legendary cloak because we're not used to using that one yet.
Of course, you were on the PTR, weren't you, with
Yeah.
the changes that have been made, so... I suppose that was also... Sorry, go on.
Yeah, most notably as well on PTR is because on PTR it's a new patch which means 5.4, and that includes the zone-wide debuff on all the mobs, which made everything had 20% less HP as well. And we didn't know about that one until actually the race actually started, so we were a bit surprised that all the bosses were dropping so incredibly fast.
Yeah, well, you never know. Blizzard might have been nice and turned that little thing off, but I suppose it kind of evens it out for both players, well, both
Yeah,
teams, if it's raid wide. So for
it
those
was
of...
the same for both guilds, so...
Yeah, it's true. At least it was even. So for those of you want to still kind of donate to this charitable event, you can go to gamingforgood.net, and I think at the minute they've raised $6.4 million, is it, or something
Yeah,
like
it's
that?
insane.
It's crazy. I mean, I know Athene managed to raise like 1 million on his own, but 6.4 million, it's a stupid amount. Nevertheless, moving on. So Mists of Pandaria, how have you been finding it raiding wise? Have you enjoyed it, or...
Yeah, definitely. I think actually Mists of Pandaria is probably the best ever expansion released from Blizzard in terms of just pure raiding. It has had its fault, especially with the daily set and all the grinding in the beginning of Mists of Pandaria. But actually the raiding has been very solid in terms of just boss mechanics and everything really.
Mm. I mean, you read these threads on MMO and they're like, "Oh God, Burning Crusade was like the best." But I think you probably hit it there with Miss being pretty spot on. Have you got a favorite encounter or a favorite raid at all?
From Mists of Pandaria
Yeah.
itself, I think I'm a pretty big fan of the Dark Animus fight and all of
Okay.
how everything worked together with that fight. We saw it a bit on the PTR before it went live, of course, and nobody had any clue what was going on at all. And
Yeah.
we were very surprised when it actually hit live because we didn't know what to make of it. And just seeing how that fight evolved and how were supposed to handle everything was actually really gratifying for me, and I really like that fight from now on.
Yeah, it does definitely have some interesting mechanics with, I mean, if people have done the Dark Animus fight, hopefully the way you have to manage the anima can be a little bit stressful at times, especially, I guess, in a 25-man raiding environment as opposed to a
Yeah.
10-man, which is what I play in.
I
So
actually have no idea how that fight works in 10 man, so I've never tried it myself.
it's pretty much the same. I think you
Yeah.
just there's a lot more inactive small anima golems, and you have to make use of the inactive larger ones in order to dump anima and make sure you're not loading too much onto the boss at one time and getting owned by the interrupting jolt. Um,
Yeah.
so moving on from kind of Mists of Pandaria, we've got 5.4 coming up in 2 days' time, I think it is, in the
Yep.
EU, and one more day for the US, who always get the lucky advantage. And well, and I've been watching Method take part in quite a bit of PTR testing. And what are your initial thoughts on the Siege of Orgrimmar? Is anything that stands out to you as potentially decent, or do you think it's a bit hit and miss?
Hmm. The main problem I really have with the beta testing we've done so far is really that both normal mode encounters and heroic mode encounters really look very similar, and a few of them have like, okay, there's new ads or something else to do slightly. And I always like the fact that otherwise heroic modes are very, very different from normal modes. You do the normal modes and then next week you do the heroics, and you have to completely pretty much relearn the fight. As for Siege of Orgrimmar, there's a lot of fights which pretty much just means that, okay, higher numbers and more ads or something like that. And that's pretty boring design in my opinion, but there's a few fights definitely that just mixes everything up. Siegecraft of Black Fuse is one of those that just
looks fun.
Goes to the extreme on the other side and just gets so overwhelmingly complicated. Same with Paragons of Calaxy, but we'll see how those fights actually turn out, because you never know. Some tuning might be slightly wrong and it just turns out to be a pushover.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately for tanks, it doesn't seem like there's that much to do. Every boss has kind of got okay, just make sure he's facing away from the raid mechanic and swap on X amount of debuffs. I mean, would you like to see some kind of different mechanics implemented for tanks at all, or are you kind of happy with the way it works at the minute?
It's actually a pretty good point, because right now on PTR, the most interesting bosses in my opinion is probably, as a tank, is probably Galakras or Spoils of Pandaria, because it's just AoE tanking fights, and you need to constantly pick up new ads, and it might be frustrating, but at the same time it's something to do. A lot of fights are, like you say, it's pretty much you stand here and then you taunt when the other tank gets a debuff, then you wait till you get the debuff and he taunts off of you. And many fights, most of the debuffs are unable to target the tank, so you just pretty much stand there and it's just face roll, and it's too boring sometimes.
Yeah, I can definitely see how it would become a bit of a, okay, I'll just stand there, consecrate, and the ads will come to me eventually. So if we move on to Garrosh Hellscream, the encounter itself, from what I've seen, could be pretty fun. Do you think it's going to be better than the Madness of Deathwing?
Better than Madness Deathwing, yeah, pretty sure.
Yeah.
And we've just seen the normal modes on PTR, of course, and it's been very brief moments. Actually, wasn't able to do the 25-man testing because we were at Gamescom at the time. Okay. But the 10-man testing we did, and personally, I really find it really fun. There's a few phases, and you do a few stuff, and get teleported here and there, and you need to, be pretty fast there as well. So initial impression for me, it seems pretty fun actually. And I really hope, I think it could even rival Lich King in if it's hard enough.
Yeah, really? Okay. Well, there's not going to be a specific amount of attempts each week, is there? So
no.
I guess you've got that going for you. So I'm happy that you also mentioned the teleporting and the phasing within the encounter. I was watching, I think it was Sparkug's video, and someone in the background said that the different teleporting and phasing really gets on their nerves, I think, because it affects people that have crap PCs.
Yeah.
Do you find that a problem in high-end raiding, or is it just something that's kind of shrugged off by people that don't have up-to-date computers?
No, actually it is a problem, and I'm really not a fan of bosses which have a loading screen in it, and we saw this a bit in Shaw of Fear also had a loading screen when you went down to that realm. Then again, when you got down to that realm, you had to run to the boss and all that stuff. It didn't really matter if you had a 2-second loading screen or even a 10-second loading screen. As for Garrosh, it's really once you get into the new realm, it's so much of a rush for time, and you need to do it ASAP. But as I read, they did make some kind of change so that either the loading screens wouldn't matter anymore, or there wouldn't be any loading screens at all anymore, because they did get a lot of flack for having loading screens in the game.
Alright, okay. So I mean, going back to what you think, I guess, was your favourite boss before the Lich King, I presume. You mentioned him earlier on. That had quite a bit of teleporting and phasing in it as well, and I guess back then computers weren't as advanced as they are today, so that might have caused a few more issues as well back then.
Yeah, I think so, but I don't know quite, because the small realm we got teleported back then was actually really, really small, so I don't think anyone really had that long loading screens. And I don't know if the loading screens would have been much worse on Garrosh, but it is a bit annoying that some people just get teleported right away, and then some people do have a 2-second loading screen. It's not fun, at least, to be like pushed back because you have a worse computer than other people.
Yeah. I suppose especially when you're in the race to world first as well
Yeah.
on heroics. Just, oh, sorry guys, I crashed while I was teleporting.
Yeah.
Okay, wipe. It's got to be.
It's the
pretty
same with
annoying.
people with bad internet, so who had constant DCs and all that stuff. I mean, it's frustrating, but if they're a good player, I mean, it could be worth it sometimes. But
Yeah.
keeps going down all the time. Not really useful for the group anyway.
I suppose you've got to look at the plus sides and the negatives as well. So moving on to the race to world first, a week on Wednesday it starts for you. Are you looking forward to it?
Yes, very much
Very
so.
much
It's been a while since the last time. It is always about 5 to 6 months between, and the PTR testing is really the most boring part of the whole world first preparation and all that stuff, because nobody really enjoys it, and some people just don't even show up because of it. So it's going to be really a lot of fun just actually seeing the bosses and seeing how they turned out. Because PTR just doesn't really matter that much. It's seeing how they actually go live.
Do you think that the PTR kind of interferes with the race to world first to an extent? Like you get to try out the heroic bosses beforehand, or do you think it doesn't matter too much because of the way they will eventually fine-tune them?
I think definitely if your guild does not go for PTR, try out PTR at all, you definitely at a disadvantage. How big that disadvantage is, I don't quite know, but I don't think it's that big, to be honest. Because other people do it, other people fraps it, other people stream it, you can learn a lot from it, but you don't have that personal experience, and that's pretty much what you're lacking. You're going to be doing most of the bosses on normal mode, it's just that you're not going to be able to see and interact with some of the heroic mode abilities. It's going to buy you maybe an hour or something of progress, and for the world first, yeah, it's definitely something that you pretty much need to do, yeah.
Okay. So, keeping on the subject of the race to world first, how would you or Method get themselves kind of prepared for a race? Would you have like a forum that you're just posting all of these different theory crafting strats in, or do your GMs and SCO and your raid leaders kind of get together and talk about it and then let everyone else know how you're going to go out and take down the boss?
No, we have a pretty we don't have, I don't know what people some people imagine about raid leaders and all that stuff, but we have a pretty open community or whatever in the guild about raid bosses and all that stuff. We have a forum basically where people will post our findings, if a debuff or we find a buff or debuff we want to have on Tell Me When or something, and then we see how we test basically, and then everyone is free to ship in their ideas for to handle a debuff, a mob or whatever, and then basically someone on officer position or whatever takes a basic strategy or whatever and tries to elaborate that one, and everyone who feels like they have something to contribute with just chips in basically.
So the race can go on for several weeks. I think for Throne of Thunder it took you just over 2 weeks possibly to clear everything, including Raden, who was the optional extra boss, I guess Blizzard kind of considered it. During that time, obviously people take time off work in order to put hours upon hours into actually going into the race. Do you find it hard to keep like motivation levels high, or if you've been wiping on a boss 200 times in a row, do people just feel like I'm done, I've had enough of this?
The race actually lasted just 2 weeks, and then Raden as well, which took another 2 or 3 weeks.
Right.
But since it was only 30 tries a week, we didn't really bother about it. It didn't feel like progress anymore. But otherwise, it took 2 weeks, and people do take time off from job. I did last time, and I got 8 days, which meant that when I would have needed 10 for Leishan as well, I actually missed out on Leishan myself.
Oh, really? Oh.
So that kind of sucks, but 2 weeks otherwise, that is a pretty perfect amount of time you should spend on progress. In my opinion now, Leishan himself took about a week, so that's a pretty good end boss in my opinion.
Yeah.
But you definitely get a bit, like, I don't know, you get a bit, it gets annoying after like 200, 300 wipes on the same boss, especially, depending a bit on when you wipe as well. Dark Animus took about 250 wipes, but most of them were like 20 seconds into fight. So it didn't take that much time, while Leishan then took like 350 tries, only 100 more, but it took like almost a week.
Yeah.
Because many of the wipes was after 6 or 10 minutes and so
Hmm.
that takes a lot more time and effort from
Do,
people.
do you find it irritating when there's like a longer encounter that you spend most of your time just doing the first stages repeatedly? For example, on Lai Shen, it could be the last phase that's just repeatedly wiping you. Do you get annoyed by that fact, or is it just something that you've kind of got to progress to and eventually overcome?
I think it's something you just eventually have to overcome. It's almost more annoying when it's like phase 1 is really easy, phase 2 is really, really hard, and then phase 3 is really, really easy, and then phase 4 is really hard. Because then every time you're in phase 3, you're sitting there, you don't have to do anything, and it's just really, really easy, but you can wipe on phase 2, and you just feel like it's so much of a waste of time. Wiping in where you're trying to do progress, like in the last phase, it doesn't feel that annoying, because if you're reaching there all the time, you are going to make progress. But if you keep wiping in the earlier phases, that's when you feel like people need to shape up and all that stuff. And Leishan is definitely one of those fights where you can wipe in the transition phases, and then the next phase is really easy, and then the next phase is harder, or the intermission again, and then the last phase is really, really hard, especially against DPS. So it's Leishan is definitely a pretty tough boss, and it tests your raid. Certainly.
Brilliant. Well, have you tried much heroic testing on the PTR at all, or I know they've done a
I
few bosses here and there.
we've done all the bosses on heroic
Done
PTR.
all.
I think I've been on pretty much all of them. Except I think I missed one 10-man or heroic testing. Yeah. Otherwise, I've been on all of the other 10-man heroic testings, and well, they've had issues with mechanics not working
Yeah.
properly and all that stuff. But otherwise, it's been pretty okay, I think. But they do seem to be a bit undertuned, but that is usually either Blizzard overtunes it or undertunes it on PTR just to see like in the next phase or whatever.
Yeah.
So we don't quite know how the numbers will look like when they go live, but right now the numbers, most of them look really easy actually.
Okay. Well, let's just hope that they do make it a challenge and not just a little bit of an annoying face roll. We like
Yeah.
a challenge. We like to see you struggle. So thank you very much for joining me today. That's all I have for you. Unfortunately, it's short and sweet. It's the best way for it.
Yeah.
If anyone would like to check out Treckie at all, you can get him on Twitter at MethodTrekkie or twitch.tv/Trekkie. And I couldn't find a Facebook page for you. Do you happen to have one
I
of those
don't
at
have
all?
one
Or-
now.
No.
No.
Okay. Any shameless plugging of yourself? Any shout outs at all? Or
No, not otherwise than the methods Facebook, of course,
hmm
or a normal website, which is Method Wow. And I think on Facebook it's Method EU.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
We always post whenever we go live with the streams with the farm raids and all that stuff, and especially for the upcoming race, I will see whenever we kill a boss and everything, there will be information there.
Yeah. Don't expect you to stream the first heroic raids the first time round, so don't anyone
No.
show up saying, where is this heroic content you promised me? We're not promising you anything. So as I said, thank you very much for joining me, and hopefully we'll speak again maybe after 5.4, get your thoughts on what it was like. You never
Yeah.
know. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much for joining me, and stay tuned to FlaskUp.com for hopefully a lot more 5.4 content.